but today we're talking about scams because all these witnesses who are testifying in this case are all victims of scams. They fell victim to Kristen Holzman, and there are other people. I mean, each and every day that you're on the internet, you hear these stories and people just want to help. I mean, my goodness, that is our reaction. I know in the community, the subdivision I live in, anything happens to someone in that subdivision, everyone, their reaction is, what can I do? What can I do to help? And that is part of our nature. That is part of who we are. Unfortunately, there are schemers and scammers out there, and that's my big issue. Who falls victim to them, and what can we do to avoid them? And I've got a great panel of guests to help us through all of this. I've got with us here in studio, I've got HLN's money expert, Clark Howard. He knows all about this. Also, Mike Brooks, our InSession law enforcement analyst. Also joining us from Miami, former Florida Assistant Attorney General Daniel Stermer. He's a specialist in fraud. And in a few moments, we'll be joined by someone who fell victim to one of these. So I think what we want to learn as we talk about this is how to spot these things. Daniel, from your perspective, you know, fraud. I mean, people are taking advantage of people's good nature, their hearts, their compassion. And the social media is a new way. It used to be, you know, you just put a jar in a store, and maybe it's for charity, maybe it's not. But now it's worldwide, and we really got to keep our guard up because we are so vulnerable, because we all want to help each other.
You're absolutely right, Vinny, in that, like you said, it used to be simple phone calls or face-to-face meetings with people. And in today's technology with Facebook, Twitter, and just email, you get emails from around the world, and I get them every day in my inbox for what I know are not legitimate cries for help, that if an innocent, unwitting person receives it, may actually turn around and give money to it. It's a difficult way in today's environment to understand who's reaching out to you and the veracity of who they are.
And you know, where are those lines of protection, Clark? You know, it's like, I think you have to, you know, Daniel, we're talking about the ways, that the protections that are out there, and it seems to me with the social media and just this whole issue in general, it's the wild, wild west. It's got to be almost impossible to try to prosecute people, to even catch people who are running these scams.
And it is, and it depends on which type of call or solicitation you may receive. As you're talking up in Atlanta about firefighters or law enforcement, my phone rings every few evenings saying they're the friends of, supporters of, and you don't know if that's actually the organization that's actually the law enforcement or the firefighter. But what I do on a daily basis is deal with large scams, whether it's, you know, Global Bullion Exchange, which was a coin company, or meat processing companies that actually they're selling the same piece of meat multiple times. Trying to understand who it is. And the problem is, in today's world, on the internet, web pages look wonderful. You know, fronts on pages look great. People can create web pages that look like they're the world's biggest Fortune 500 company, and actually they're nothing more than somebody sitting at a computer at home. So a consumer today, somebody who's contemplating doing something, whether it's a small giving or an investment, needs to do their due diligence. Get online. Research who it is. Call the local Better Business Bureau. Call the state attorney general where that company or that charity you think may be, and find out. Do your homework before you give.
And we're going to talk more about that. Questions you should ask, things you should look for, little indicators that, hey, maybe this thing isn't 100% legit. We're going to talk about it because the last thing I want you to do after watching this trial is to be less charitable. Because I know that the folks that watch InSession are so compassionate when we talk about victims and people that legitimately need help. Let's not be deterred because of one woman in a small town in Illinois. You know, Daniel, I wanted to ask you about the victims in the cases that you've dealt with. You know, who are the victims? My guess is that it could be people from all different walks of life, but perhaps the elderly get targeted a little bit more than others. From your experience, who are the victims here?
Yeah, it depends on the specific scam, because certain scams have specific victim groups. Some of them are what we call affinity scams, where they're potentially done in somebody's church, and they're picking on their friends and people they know. Other scams are of national depth and breadth and involve every age group. Many of them focus on those that are a little older. Generally, those that are a little older are less computer savvy compared to the younger generation. But in cases we've found, generally the victims are every age group, and the cases we've worked on and I've worked on run across the country. I've had cases where we've had 1,400 people involved in an investment scam in precious metals, thinking their life savings were going to appreciate as the price of gold and silver 2 years ago was on the rise. And then when they sought their money, the business was gone. Or I have another case where 90,000 people who were doing the right thing in their credit card debt found out the company was skimming the money off the top to pay themselves fees. So at the end, people who did the right thing, who reached out to somebody they thought was a reputable law firm to help them pay down their credit card debt, actually wasn't paying down their debt at all. So the victims can be you and me if we don't pay attention.
And Clark, that's the other part. We talked a lot about charity. And how about on the internet, Daniel? What would you say to folks? They're being solicited, whether it's on Facebook because of this victim of something needs your help, needs your money. What would you say?
Well, and to the last quote, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. That was a phrase we used in the Attorney General's office often. But if you're getting a solicitation online, you know what? Click a few more keys and investigate till you're comfortable that you know who you're dealing with, whether it's an individual or a company. You look at what Ms. Holzman was doing, and she was doing it to her friends in the community. That is a real personal touch, where so much of what happens today is impersonal. But somebody who's contemplating giving must, if they want to protect themselves, investigate, investigate, investigate. Because at the end of the day, you're giving up your hard-earned money to give to something you think is beneficial or worthwhile. And I hate for people to find out months later that what they gave to was somebody's pocket who's not even doing anything for them.
And if somebody asks for, investigate anything having to do with electronic transfer of funds, if you think that it's something wrong with that, call the United States Secret Service, because that's one of the kind of cases that they investigate as part of their investigative purview. They look on dealing with financial institutions, transfer of electronic transfer of funds between different accounts, those kind of things. Give them a call, and they can tell you if there's a scam going on.
And something else, in this case, the church group was very savvy in saying, well, we want to help, and we will help, but why don't we pay a bill? And then when Kristen Holzman didn't want the bill paid, she's, no, just give me the cash. I want the cash. And okay, then I think everyone started to realize there's something going on here. Great information. Daniel, thank you so much. Clark, Howard, great to see you. Check them out tonight, Evening Express on HLN. And Mike Brooks, always great information.